What if there was a way to truly achieve a work-life balance? What if there was a way to forget about the daily grind? What if you could go to work in the morning and blink, and suddenly it's time to go home? Sounds amazing, right? Severance is a TV show that follows Marc, an employee of the Lumen Corporation. What's unique about his job is that he has undergone the severance procedure. He had a chip installed in his brain that separates the memories he has at work from his outside memories. Essentially, a new work self called the innie is created. The memories are separated spatially. When the outside self, called the outie, goes down the elevator, they switch to innie memories. They don't recall anything they've done at work when they go back up. The outie seems to come out of work as soon as they come in. This sounds amazing, right? That 8-hour shift goes by in the blink of an eye. There is a flip side, however. When the innie clocks out of work and goes up the elevator, they immediately arrive back at work again. Work is all that they will come to know. To me, this is hell. The newest innie, Hallie, recognizes this right away and spends the whole of the season trying to get out of the severed floor. Her co-workers in the macro data refinement department, Marc, Dylan, and Irving, are much more used to the severed arrangement. This is due to the relentless psychological work done on them. The top manager of the severed floor, Miss Cobell, rules over them with an iron fist. The manager below her, Mr. Milchick, provides a softer touch, to a much more sinister effect. As the season goes on, we start to wonder if the Lumen Corporation is a cult. There are images of the corporation's founder, Keir Egan, everywhere. Egan's words are quoted like scripture.
Rise up from your deathbed and sally forth, more perfect for the struggle.
Communication between innies and outies is heavily restricted. Any questioning of how things are done is immediately shut down. If the workers get too out of line, they are sent to the break room. The break and break room is a psychological breaking down of the employee. There is no discussion of what the worker did wrong. The goal is not for the worker to learn, but for the worker to conform. What if there was a way to escape the drudgery of work like this? What if you could be your own boss? No more Cobells or Milchicks breathing down your neck. Sounds great, right? On Becoming a God in Central Florida is a TV show that follows Crystal Stubbs, a member of Founders American Merchandise, or FAM for short. FAM sells
household goods, cleaning products.
Crystal, like all her FAM colleagues, is encouraged to recruit as many people into FAM as possible. The people she recruits are called her downline, and she gets a percentage of everything they sell. The more FAM members recruit, the more they move up the ranks. The idea is that the members are expected to quit their regular jobs because FAM offers them the opportunity to be their own bosses. Sounds great, right? If you couldn't tell by now, FAM is a scam. It's a pyramid scheme. The focus is on recruiting new members rather than selling the products. Members are told that they can be their own boss because they're not legally employees of FAM. They are independent business owners, which means that they have to buy the products from FAM in order to sell. FAM sustains itself by siphoning money from its members, who not only pay for the products, but also for motivational rallies and tapes. What's interesting is that FAM promises to be different from workplaces like Lumen, but in practice is quite similar. FAM says that its members don't have to work under a restrictive hierarchy, since they are their own boss. In reality, there is a hierarchy at FAM. The people that a given FAM member recruits are called their downline, and the person that recruited the FAM member is called their upline. It's not only from one level down that members get a percentage of sales. It goes all the way down. Naturally, This means that members want to recruit as much as possible. Crystal often gets pressure to recruit from her upline Cody. Cody also gets pressure from his upline Carol and Carol. So in practice, the same restrictive hierarchy exists. Restrictive hierarchies mean strict protocols that workers have to follow. We see this with the severed workers at Lumen, but also with FAM. FAM members can't deviate from what's called the Garbo system, named after their leader, Obi Garbo. When Crystal deviates from the system, she faces backlash from all the uplines above her, even Obi Garbo himself.
This class is an apostasy. Mr. Garbo wants this class shut down.
It doesn't matter that Crystal found a new way to bring in a high number of recruits. She has to follow the system. Under the promise of being your own boss, FAM offers a way out of the drudgery of regular jobs. Gone are the days of killing yourself working for someone else. In practice, many of the FAM members kill themselves trying to recruit as much as possible. In the case of Crystal's husband Travis, he recruits as much as possible on top of working his regular job. He works even harder than he normally would, at the cost of his health. Like with Lumen and Severance, we start to wonder if FAM is a cult. Obi Garbo is regarded with the same kind of reverence as Keir Egan. Thanks to the motivational tapes that FAM members are expected to buy, Obi Garbo's words are treated like scripture. As I mentioned before, any deviation from Obi Garbo's way of doing things is met with intense backlash.
It's an apostasy.
Any legitimate criticism of FAM is met with strong denial because of the psychological conditioning that FAM members go through.
Like the preacher man says, we all gotta serve somebody. So I want you to ask yourselves, who am I serving? And what did he do with my soul?
It would be easy to call current CEO of Lumen, James Egan, and Obi Garbo cult leaders and leave it at that. But I think there's more going on here. Neither leader seems like a cynical grifter. They seem to believe in something. Maybe they're also just cult members. But what cult are they a part of? Whatever it is, it involves accumulating more wealth, even though they already have a lot of it. Let's call this cult the cult of money. In the case of Lumen, James Egan felt the need to create the severance procedure in order to generate more wealth. Lumen is a big presence in the world of severance, but for some reason, there's a need to be bigger. Theoretically, a worker that isn't affected by outside distractions should make the company a lot of money. In the case of FAM, Obi Garbo also has to answer to the cult of money. At one point he complains about not having more important and influential friends to fill the seats he bought for a fundraiser.
I need to associate with senators, with moguls, with judges.
He bought the seats for $2,500 each and tried to sell them to his friends for $5,000. Even if you have more money than most, the cult still demands something from you. There's this article written by American business writer Tom Peters called A Brand Called You that applies to the mindset of the FAM members. The article came out in 1997, 5 years after the setting of On Becoming a God in Central Florida. It talks about how the reader should start thinking about themselves as a brand instead of an employee. The article emphasizes constant self-evaluation. Everything you do should be to boost your brand. This means that you regulate your behavior so it can be in line with what your brand is supposed to be.
Your reputation is your business, and your business is your reputation.
The FAM members constantly ask themselves what they can do to bring in more recruits. They are aware of the way that they present themselves. They always present themselves as confident and successful, even though for many of them this is not the case. When they see that the bonus checks are not getting bigger, they attribute it to what they are doing or not doing. They don't see the scam for what it is. Cult members often regulate themselves in this way. Both shows point out that in the world of work, you're not just supposed to be productive, but devoted. When you are productive, you give up some of your time and energy to complete the job asked of you. You either get the job done or you don't. When you're devoted, you give up all of yourself. Like the Brand Called You article says, you're branded, 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 branded. The Lumen Corporation in Severance essentially creates workers that are completely devoted. They know nothing outside of Lumen. In FAM, there's barely any focus on selling products. The focus is on bringing new members into the cult. The cult of money demands a sacrifice. I don't think it's a coincidence that both Severance and On Becoming a God in Central Florida use religious imagery. The compliance handbooks in Lumen look like Bibles, and the FAM rallies and motivational garbo tapes are basically sermons for FAM members. I think there needs to be a kind of spiritual aspect at play for FAM and Lumen to function. Sociologist Max Weber writes about this aspect. Truly what is here preached is not simply a means of making one's way in the world, but a peculiar ethic. The infraction of its rules is treated not as foolishness, but as forgetfulness of duty. That is the essence of the matter. It is not mere business astuteness, that sort of thing is common enough. It is an ethos. The workers need to feel like they are a part of something greater. If it wasn't for this greater meaning, Lumen workers would realize just how inhumane Severance really is, and the FAM workers would realize that their bonus checks won't get any bigger. Philosopher Neil Vallely writes, where this greater meaning used to be theologically or morally constructed, it now rests solely in the act of serving the market, which is the deity that governs our behaviors and demands sacrifice to something beyond our material lives. We see this in Lumen with the Perpetuity Wing, which functions as a shrine to past and present CEOs. The Perpetuity Wing is supposed to make the workers feel like they are a part of something greater. In actual religions, past saints and prophets are put into a greater historical context. This is not the case for Lumen. There is no real context because Lumen can't show the workers too much of the outside world. There's a part of the Perpetuity Wing called the Lumen Legacy of Joy that shows the smiles of people Lumen has helped. But that's it, only the smiles. They can't even show the full faces because the workers will start to wonder about the lives of the people they see. FAM constantly refers to the founding fathers of America and Manifest Destiny. The members are made to feel like they are carrying on a legacy of making your own way. Even the different tiers of the organization are named after founding fathers. Obi-Garbo mentions influential people of the past and present without referring to what they believe. We know that Obi-Garbo believes in something, but it's not always clear what that something is. It really sounds like he's riffing most of the time. There's no real foundation to his system. Guilt plays a part in many religions, but there's a difference in how it plays a part in the cult of money. In religion, there is the possibility to atone for what makes you guilty. But as philosopher Walter Benjamin puts it, capitalism is probably the first instance of a cult that creates guilt, not atonement. In this respect, the religious movement is caught up in the headlong rush of a larger movement. A vast sense of guilt that is unable to find relief seizes on the cult, not to atone for this guilt, but to make it universal. It is important to note that in the German that Benjamin writes in, the word for guilt can also be the word for debt. There is this relentlessness in the cult of money to foster the guilt that makes workers regulate themselves. Guilt in this instance is like debt in the sense that it is perpetual. When it boils down to it, debt is just a constant extraction of money. It feels like money is not a means to an end, but an end in itself. Speaking of guilt, let's return to the break room punishment that Lumen employees have to go through if they step out of line. They must read these words until whoever's running the punishment is satisfied. Forgive me for the harm I have caused this world. None may atone for my actions but me, and only in me shall this stain live on. I am thankful to have been caught, my fall cut short by those with wizened hands. All I can be is sorry, and that is all I am. This is guilt without atonement. There's no discussion about what the employee did wrong, only this statement. Guilt causes people to look inwards. Only in me shall this stain live on. They continue to blame themselves so that they don't look outwards and see the severance procedure for what it is. The statement is very general. Forgive me for the harm I have caused this world. The world doesn't even know what goes on at Lumen. The guilt is made universal because the punishment is not about atonement. It is about breaking down the mind of the employee so that they don't step out of line again. Physiological readings are taken to make sure that the employee is sufficiently broken down. There's no such punishment for the farm workers, but as I said before, the workers are constantly evaluating themselves. Guilt is an inward-looking emotion after all. The workers blame themselves when the bonus checks don't get bigger. The feelings of guilt will continue because of the Garbo system.
The surest way to tame a prisoner is to let him believe he's free.
When I started making this video, I set out to examine why these two shows have this cultic element to them. The accumulation of wealth is central to both shows. Severance involves the working of a very large corporation, and On Becoming a God in Central Florida is about a pyramid scheme. Why would these shows have pseudo-religious elements then? The cultic elements in both Severance and On Becoming a God in Central Florida show how destructive the cult of money can be. Being trapped in the cycle of guilt and futility can have serious psychological effects. The feeling of doing all that you can and then some without seeing any meaningful change can weigh on the mind. This is best shown by the farm workers. Their bonus checks simply aren't going to get bigger, so they ask themselves what they're doing wrong, and then resolve to work harder, and then they see that the checks don't get bigger, so they work harder, and the cycle of guilt and futility continues. The fam members are promised a lavish lifestyle if they work hard enough, but the whole appeal of this lifestyle is that it is exclusive. That Lamborghini or Bugatti is not going to be as appealing if everyone has one. Obi Garbo works to obscure this exclusivity. He tells the fam members that anyone can be a winner if they really want to. By doing this, he makes sure that he stays at the top of the pyramid. There comes a point though, when the workers realize that the cycle of guilt and futility is not of their own making. This is best shown by the workers at Lumen. They each come to realize the cycle by coming together and talking about how inhumane the severance procedure really is. If other people are in the same predicament as you, perhaps the predicament is not your fault. The outies chose to have the severance procedure, but the innies did not choose how it would be implemented. Just because people have been conditioned psychologically doesn't mean that they can't get out of it.